Yes, we're on the air. So good evening, everyone. I'm very, very happy and very excited and a little bit nervous. Yes, you should have. I was singing songs before the interview to overcome my fear of like, how am I going to handle an interview in English for an hour and a half? My rusty English, but hey, I'm here.
Not that rusty, honey.
Why? Wait a second. Here it is. So everybody, good evening, Erev Tov. Please write in the chat box underneath the interview that you can hear us and that you can see us, so we can begin with the interview. And before I present you, Tim, to everyone, just checking that everybody can see and hear.
Make sure our technology is cooperating.
Exactly. And the audience as well,
They might not cooperate. It's possible.
ערב טוב לכולם, אני עוברת שנייה לעברית רק בשביל הבדיקה הטכנית שאתן רואות ושומעות בתיבת התגובות ממש מתחת לשידור. אם תוכלו לכתוב שאתן רואות ושומעות אז יהיה מצוין, רואים ושומעים. ואנחנו נוכל להתחיל את הרעיון עם טים. הרעיון יתקיים באנגלית, אבל אני אתרגם אתכן ווייס ורסה.
Little back and forth.
Yes. Yes, Michal. Okay, Michal said that she can hear.
Michal says she can hear. As long as Michal can hear us, then we're good to go.
Yeah, at least one person, that's enough.
We're doing this for you, Michal.
So I'll begin this interview, how do you say, informally, and then I'll introduce you formally. I don't know if you know that, but I think it was in 2012, I bumped into a person named Orgad Miron. I don't know if you know this guy.
I know Orgad.
You know Orgad, okay. And Orgad told me about your book and about your method, and he also invited me to a session with him. And I was very fascinated with what he was doing with me. And obviously, I went home and I searched for your book, True Purpose, and I bought it. And I'm ashamed to say that it was on my Kindle until a few months ago that I bumped into an email saying, Tim Kelly is coming to Israel, True Purpose. I'm like, True Purpose, that's what Orgad told me. I gotta meet this guy. And if I haven't went to that workshop in Jerusalem a few months ago, I don't think that we would be here today. So I'm so thankful to you and grateful that you come to Israel and provide those workshops and for the opportunity to be there with you and to go through this process. And thank you so much for accepting this invitation and being here with us this evening. I would like to introduce you formally so people will know who is this Tim Kelly that we're talking about.
Who is this guy? I get that a lot.
Who's this guy? Yeah, sitting there in California, in Berkeley.
Who is he and what's he doing here?
Yeah. So Tim Kelly is a global change agent and internationally renowned expert on new this word always breaks my teeth. Paradigm system and methods. He works with top leaders in many fields and countries to transform and evolve organizations, markets, and industries. His clients list include top leaders and executive team from such companies as Nabisco and ING, Oracle, and PricewaterhouseCoopers, as well as government ministers and leaders of international NGOs. Tim has trained over 1,000 consultants, therapists, coaches in his methods. He is the author of the book True Purpose and the best-selling co-author of 3 other books, which I would love to hear about those other books as well. His methodology, True Purpose, has been featured internationally in magazines, newspapers, and on television. And Tim is working with politicians and business leaders in the Middle East to find the higher purpose of Israel. The country has a purpose. And resolve the conflicts here. He has commanded military organizations, including an amphibious assault craft unit, and he's a retired Naval Reserve officer. He holds a bachelor's degree in mathematics from MIT. Which leads me to the first question, Tim. Coming from technology and from, you know, from the military service, and you were a navigator, right?
Yes, I was a ship navigator.
A ship navigator, you know, and working in the high-tech field for so many years. Can you share with us your own personal journey and what led you to discover your purpose? And, you know, how come this is what you're doing right now? Because you weren't doing it for many years. You were doing...
For many years, I was doing other things. This is true. This is like my third or fourth career, to be sure. And I'm a little older than I look, but yeah, my dad was a Christian minister, so I grew up in a church. And I was a very rational, inquisitive young boy and asked a lot of questions at church and found a lot of the answers unsatisfactory.
To say the least.
What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense at all. So I'm sure, I mean, I feel very bad for my Sunday school teachers because they're really, you know, supposed to be babysitters, but I needed theologians. So anyway, I rejected religion by the time I was 6 and chose science as my religion, if you will, and was a very vocal little atheist. And that worked for me for a long time. The problem with a purely rational scientific world is that it's a little short on meaning. And this caught up with me in my early 20s when I was at MIT studying electrical engineering and mathematics, and realized that I had achieved all the goals I had set for myself. And I tried setting new ones, but it actually didn't really work. And so I lost all of my motivation. And really, I mean, I took philosophy classes and stuff and concluded that they were just making it all up. And where that left me was that I had no basis for believing anything, that there was no foundation for me at all. It was like the floor had dropped out of my universe. And as a result, since I didn't even know whether I existed or not, why would I go to class or do anything, you know? And I just, it really disabled me. You know, I stopped going to class. I flunked out of school, and because I was in an officer training program, I wound up getting sent to the Navy to like mop the decks and paint the walls and stuff like that. It sort of went from the officer trainee down to the, you know, very bottom of the ranks, which gave me lots of time to think. Huh. So my first purpose crisis was at age 6. My second purpose crisis was at age 21. I got out of the Navy, went to work at Oracle, finished my degree, went to work at Oracle Corporation, was working my way up through the hierarchy. Because what the Navy had taught me was that life may or may not have meaning, but there are more and less fun ways to do it. And that scraping paint and swabbing decks was not a fun way. And having a bachelor's degree and having a real job in high tech would be a more fun way. So that was my plan. It's like, all right, I'm going to go play the game. I don't necessarily believe in any of it, but I'm going to climb the corporate ladder and earn money and do that stuff and be as happy as I can in this meaningless universe. And that worked until I was about 31, when I realized I got pretty high at Oracle, and I realized going higher wouldn't make me any happier. And that's usually something traditionally, now the youngsters now are different, but when we were young, that was something that happened to people in their 50s, not something that happened to people in their 30s. So I had a very early midlife crisis. Hopefully it doesn't mean that that was midlife and I'll die when I'm 62. I don't think that's the case, but that thought hadn't occurred to me before. Anyway, so I left Oracle and went to work for a workshop company where I was teaching consciousness work, because that actually gave me a sense of meaning. And I did that for a few years, burned out. It was a very, very hard job. Burned out and went back to high tech, but I'd caught the bug. I had been infected with consciousness work. And it eventually caught up with me when I was 41 and had a real revelation experience and found my purpose, you know, I was really thinking very hard about what were my dreams in life, because that was an assignment a friend of mine had given me in a workshop I was taking with her. Actually, it's Marcia Wieder. Some of your folks in Israel may know Marcia Wieder. She and I are buddies, and I was taking one of her workshops. She sometimes takes my workshops. And so I was doing my homework, and my purpose came to me in this huge flash, and it really shook me to the core. I was just like, blah, like really nervous and overwhelmed by the experience, which is not uncommon, actually. Mm-hmm. And that was about 13 and a half years ago, something like that. And so that started a journey towards manifesting that purpose, which continues to this day and will continue until I no longer, you know, until I decide I don't want to be out in the world making stuff happen anymore, which, you know, who knows when that'll be. And that really, in many ways, it solved for me a problem I'd had ever since I was 6, which is, why am I here? Getting an answer to that question. Mm-hmm. And how can I make the greatest impact with my life? Right? How can I make the biggest difference? This experience answered those 2 questions. And it also showed me how I could find anyone's purpose, or for that matter, anything's, right? We've used this method with companies and countries, and we found the higher purpose of religion, the higher purpose of business, the higher purpose of the law, the higher purpose of disease. I mean, you can use this method with anything. And that started this process of initially doing it with other people, right, whoever wanted to find their purpose, and then later leaders, and then world leaders, and then countries. And I'm just sort of slowly, as people who manifest their purpose do, slowly increasing my impact over time. So I think that's a good summary.
A summary. Well, so we're talking about different crises that made you stop and start think, or like reevaluate your life. And we're talking about the search for meaning. And we're talking about from being a very rational person and seeking all sorts of like professions or work that surrounds science. Yeah. You went into like conscious work, and I'm interested because I saw one of your videos saying, I went to do this workshop, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't.
It was pretty tough. I was committed, or else I would have been out of there. Well, because they were talking about energy and chakras and reincarnation and, you know, all this stuff, and I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. This is the path? I have to do this? And I just didn't believe in any of it. And I still don't believe in some of it. You know, people talk to me about Atlantis and UFOs and some of these other things. I'm thinking, you know, if there are aliens here, they're grad students doing research on primitive cultures, you know. It's I still have a healthy skeptical function, mm-hmm. but after really testing and evaluating and trying out many of these different things, I found some of them had tremendous value, and others were a complete crock as far as I could tell. But it was hard to tell the difference from a distance. You have to kind of engage with it and play with it to see. And that's been helpful to me because I find a lot of Israelis have a strong skeptical streak, and they, you know, are kind of suspicious and want to test it and see if it's real or not, which is fine. And part of what's happened for me is because I came from that background, when I found my own purpose and started connecting to guidance from beyond just my conscious mind, that same question came up for me. How do I know this is real? And that led to a whole methodology that you've seen in the mm-hmm. True Purpose process for testing these things to make sure that they're working. Because I don't feel like if I'm going to base my life on this thing, I don't want to take on faith that it's correct. I want to know, how do I tell if this thing that I think is my purpose, that I'm getting as information about my purpose, how do I know whether it's accurate or not? I think that's a completely fair question. And so we've developed dozens of ways of telling whether something is really, truly your purpose or not.
Which you know, it's very interesting because when you were talking in the workshop about connecting the dots, haven't you gone towards science and math and computers? I mean, what you got from there, and everything you studied was not in vain because it helped you develop a very, your method is very systematic. You know, it's not
That's
just all kinds of like voodoo work.
Open and trust and believe, and the angels will tell you it'll be great. You know, it's not like that. It's very, like you said, it's very methodical. First we need to do this, then we need to do this, then we need to do this. Okay, now this stuff's going to get in the way. We have to deal with that. Okay, now this happened. Let's figure out whether it worked or not. Now, if it worked, what do we do with the results? If not, what do we do? You know, there's like a flow chart. You know,
Exactly.
here's how you do it.
It makes a lot of sense working with this method. I must admit, because you know I went through this thing, and the other thing is, like you said, that you had a crisis with the church as a youngster, as a young child, but actually now you also refer to God in some ways. So
Sure.
you're like, yeah.
Well, so
it's like you reconnected with something that you disconnected from many years ago.
So what I do as a child, what people tend to do is they do in English what we call throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which means when you say no to something, you say no to it and anything that looks remotely like it. And so when I said no to my father's church, I said no to God and religion and spirituality and anything that couldn't be touched, proven, or measured, right? All at the same time. Well, you know, that's a big part of the human experience being removed from my life, which leaves it whole, as opposed to what an adult might do is say, well, okay, I want to have a spiritual experience and a spiritual life, but I'm not a huge fan of the religion I was raised with, or I like religion, but I'm unwilling to subscribe to this belief or this belief or this belief, but I'm fine with the rest of it, you know, or that kind of, these are the kind of things that we can do as adults, which is do these nuances, right? And so in our workshops, we have people who are absolutely dead set against believing in anything spiritual, and they're fine. And other people who are completely devoutly religious, and they're having a religious experience in the workshop, sitting next to the atheist who is not having a religious experience. But somebody else who's totally spiritual but not religious, right, having a spiritual experience. And it's all good. It's all fine. And I'm a huge fan because I've been in these different, you know, I started out as religious when I was very young, then an atheist, now spiritual, but not religious. Because I've been through all these phases, I see the value and the truth in all of them. Who am I to say that this one's correct and that one's incorrect? Given that at one time or another in my life, I believed in all of them, right? So, I have a huge preference for helping people find their purpose within their existing belief system, rather than telling them, okay, you can find your purpose, but you have to believe in God. Or you can find your purpose, but you have to believe in angels, or something like that. What if they don't? Then game over, right? They're not going to go anywhere. So I'm a huge fan of saying, no, if you're an atheist, that's fine. Don't look for some spiritual source for your purpose. It won't work because you don't believe it exists, right? And if you're really religious, you have to look to God or Moses or Jesus or your soul or something like that to find your purpose, because that's what you believe in. But don't worry about the atheist sitting next to you. He's doing a different workshop.
But it's amazing that because you walk this path, you can relate to different people and meet them where they are at, and not impose your belief system on them. It's really interesting, and I think that's what I was really intrigued with, the way you led 100 people in the room with 100 Jews, 100 Israelis with different views, and it was really interesting to see that. It sounds very romantic and sexy. Oh, I had a revelation and I found my purpose. But can you also talk a little bit about the obstacles along the way and how you overcome them?
Yeah. So there are obstacles to finding purpose and obstacles to living it. Let's talk about the obstacles to find, and they're related. They're very similar. Let's talk about the obstacles to finding it first. So the main obstacle to finding purpose is fear. And it usually sounds something like this. In the person's mind, they say to themselves, wow, this sounds really cool. This guy Tim's onto something here. I want to find my purpose. Let me go to his workshop, or so they have some sort of thought, or I want to read his book, or something, some impulse to want to find their purpose some way or another. And then immediately another voice comes up and says, well, if I do, what if I have to leave my job? Or what if my spouse doesn't like it? Or what if my purpose is to feed starving children in Calcutta, like Mother Teresa or something like that? What'll I do then? What if I can't make any money at my purpose? Ooh, I'm not so excited about it now. Now the other part's still saying, yeah, let's do this, and this other part's like kind of like hauling back on the leash, and the person gets kind of stuck because they want to find it and they're afraid of finding it at the same time, right? They're afraid of the changes that will result from finding their purpose. The biggest obstacle I found to people finding their purpose is the imagination or the belief that if they do find it, they have to do it. This is the killer. Because if I say, okay, I'm going to find my purpose, and whatever it is, I'm going to do it, I've now created a danger for myself. It's sort of like if you said to me, hey, Tim, I want to do a business thing with you, sign here, and then I'll let you read the contract. Whoa, not so fast, honey. Maybe I should read the contract first. And then sign it. And the same thing's true with purpose. Okay, I'm curious. Tell me what it is, and then I'll decide whether I feel like doing it or not. That's actually a healthier relationship to the purpose than whatever it is, I'm going to do it no matter what. Because if you take that no matter what thing, the parts of you that are afraid of what that no matter what entails will stop you from finding your purpose. And this is the state that over 99% of people are in. They're curious about their purpose and afraid of answering it. And that state is stable and can go on indefinitely. So that's the first obstacle. So in the workshop, as you've seen, among the first things that we do is identifying and dealing with the fears of finding purpose to make it completely 100% safe to know what your purpose is. And until you conclude that it's 100% safe to find your purpose, it's going to be almost impossible. And so far, there's a total of 17 people who had no fear of finding their purpose and could just do it. And that's out of, I don't know how many thousands, 17 people. Way less than 1% of people. I am not one of that 17. And neither were you. Right? They're very unusual people. In terms of manifesting the purpose, once I've found it, a couple things happen. One is it usually feels overwhelming. That the person's experience is, wow, it's like, how can I do that? That's so big, right? You want me to change the world. You want me to do stuff that I don't feel fully capable of. And that's actually important that it feel at least a little bit overwhelming, because if it were something that you could do easily, it wouldn't actually be inspiring. It wouldn't motivate. And part of how the purpose creates meaning is by motivating and inspiring you to grow, evolve, become a better person, and make a bigger difference in the world. Right? It's sort of like a challenge. Your purpose is a challenge to you, saying, I challenge you to become the person who could fulfill this purpose. And so now I have to rise to the occasion. I have to deal with some of my, internal issues. I have to clean up some stuff in my life. I have to evolve in order to be able to fulfill that purpose. And when I do that, that's all good. That makes my life is better. I'm happier. Usually people make more money when they're happier and more fulfilled. They often get promoted. I've had people hire me and use this to get jobs as CEOs and stuff like that. That you can do a lot with it if you're willing to take on that challenge. Now, you don't have to take on the challenge. You can hear the challenge and say, no, thank you. Things are fine the way they are, and I hear that purpose. That sounds interesting, but I choose to keep doing what I'm doing, or I choose to keep doing what I'm doing for now, and maybe later I'll do that purpose. Right? That's a perfectly valid choice. And people are afraid of saying no to their purpose, but it's fine. People say no to their purpose all the time. Most people say no to their purpose. Why would that be a problem? Right? So if you rise to that challenge, then you get this huge boost of energy, fulfillment, inspiration, meaning, and usually you can use that as a force to drive your life forward in cool and interesting ways. And if you're interested and you want to, you can use it to create more fulfillment, more meaning, and more value and money in your work.
It's interesting what you're saying about, it sounds like manifesting your purpose is a lifelong personal development workshop.
It seems to be. So, because people spend years and years and years seeking their purpose, and one of the fears they have is, well, what if I find it? Does that mean the journey's over? No, 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 no.
It
New
just
journey.
begins.
Right? The what is my purpose question shifts to a new question, which is, how the hell am I supposed to do that? Right? And so now I set about the process of implementing the purpose that I've learned. And you're right, that goes on indefinitely until you don't want to do it anymore. Because as I manifest my purpose more, I become more capable of living a larger purpose, right? So we encourage people to review and evaluate this. So there's some people listening to this program or watching us who have had a purpose. Like they have a purpose statement that was very motivating for them that they've lived with for years, right? But if it's 3 years old or 5 years old, it's probably not as inspiring as the day they found it. So it may be time for them to engage with a more powerful purpose, right? To reevaluate, to go back in and find another one.
And that's actually what happened to me, because I was sure I know my purpose. And actually, before going to your workshop, I had a meeting with my business mentor, and he offered me like something to do, and I freaked out. And it was thanks to the workshop that I realized that these were my fears and not the plan that he offered. And the plan is synchronized completely with my purpose. But it was like, oh my God, this is too much. I can't handle it. It's too big. I'm like, okay, that's exactly what I need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were talking about motivation, and I know this is not about, you know, on the questions that I was planning to ask you. But again, I saw it on one of your videos when you were talking to a woman about our core wound. I work a lot with wounded healers, with therapists and coaches and group leaders, and we know that a lot of us sought this profession because we're wounded and we want to help other wounded people. And you're talking about the difference when the motivation comes from the wound versus when the motivation comes when you heal the wound. Can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Yeah, we just wrapped up a program with 150 people called Evolving Beyond Your Wounds, which was worked very well. It was the first time we ran this program, and it turned out pretty much exactly as we had hoped. So the wounded healer, you said a lot of healers. I would go further than a lot. Nearly all.
All of them.
Yeah, pretty much. And it works something like this. And those who are listening who are in the helping professions, who are consultants, counselors, therapists, coaches, will be able to appreciate this. And this is a deeper thought than we would normally engage with in an introductory interview like this. But if that's your audience, they'll be able to grasp this. Your wound is training for your purpose. And it trains you for it in a couple different ways. Two come to mind immediately. One is that by overcoming the challenges that your wound creates for you, you learn how to help someone else who has a similar issue. What happens is we healers, we look out and we imagine everybody has that issue and everybody needs what we have to offer. And that's not true. That's a projection.
Exactly.
It's overstating the case, right? It would be me like saying, everyone has to find their purpose and they all have to do it using my method and then everything will be perfect, right? This is a assumption that other people are all like me. And they're not. They don't all need to find their purpose, right? There's a whole bunch of people who never will and they'll be fine. But then there's a whole bunch of other people who absolutely need it and need it in more detail than they have it and would be called to work with me. So, for example, so it gives you the tools to help others who have a similar challenge to you internally. And it's usually harder to overcome your own than it is to overcome theirs. And because yours is a training program, it has to give you some really good, solid challenges to really learn it. The other thing it does is it gives you a psychological motivation to want to heal others. And this is important. It's useful, but it's also a what we would call a wounded drive. That is, the normal way the ego functions is in reaction to the wound. I go out to try to fix myself and others in order to avoid the negative feelings associated with that experience that I had as a child, right? And that's a very powerful source of motivation, but it has negative side effects. It's sort of like using fossil fuels to operate vehicles. It's like, it works great, right? Fossil fuels are a great source of energy, and you get all these toxic fumes when you do it that way.
Along the way.
And so usually by the time healers have grown up, when they're in their 40s and 50s and stuff like that, the toxicity is starting to get kind of high, and the compulsion to heal other people starts to get in the way, as opposed to being a benefit. My friend Jeffrey Van Dyke calls this your wound expiring. He says it's like a carton of milk. It has an expiration date.
Exactly.
If you use it after the expiration date, it doesn't taste as good. You know, it's not as good for you. Adults, we start to realize, and usually it starts to show up in problems that occur in relationship with our clients and students and stuff like this, indicating that maybe a shift is needed. And the part of the problem is that the energy, the healing energy, is directed outwards and not to the degree it needs to be inwards. And we call this blessing yourself. That is doing your purpose to yourself as an act of self-transformation to graduate beyond being driven by your wound. And then once you're out of this wound-driven phase, you have the option of choosing other sources of motivation, such as your higher purpose. Well, I could do anything I want, but this purpose looks really cool. Let me do that. As opposed to being driven away from these negative experiences unconsciously as a primary source of motivation and energy. So yeah, I think a bunch of your listeners will be able to resonate and find some aspect of that in their own experience. But for that reason, the finding one's purpose can be a junction point. It can be part of the transition out of that wound-driven phase of life.
And is this like a more advanced work that you do in your workshops?
Yeah, so if somebody finds their purpose and they decide to go with it and run with it, at some point their wound will start to get in the way. So we usually do that as like follow-up work later, say, okay, and if you want to graduate out of this wound-driven phase of life and kind of re-architect your psyche so it no longer is built around that core wound, here's how you do that. We have a bunch of processes, and well, that's some really fun work, I'm here to tell you.
That it is. Sign me up for the next one.
Good, clean fun.
A lot of people ask if you have one purpose or more than one purpose, and you also mentioned like if you have a specific wound, then it's very clear to know who's your tribe and you're here to help. But do you think that we have more than one purpose or more than one, a target population that we're here to help or assist and transform?
Yeah, so let me talk about it first at the level of belief and then at the level of practicality. Okay. So at the level of belief, people tend to come in 3 different camps. Camp 1 is I choose my purpose. And so purpose is like a goal or a value. It's something I pick. I have decided that my purpose is blah. In that case, whether it's one purpose or multiple purposes is a matter of choice. I choose to have one purpose and I never change my mind, therefore I only have one purpose. Or I choose this one purpose and later I decide, aha, this other purpose would work better for me, so I'll choose that instead. For those people, this is a quest for the optimal purpose, for the one that will motivate them the most, give them the most benefit, cause them to be the most successful and to make the greatest difference in the world. Those people are looking for the best purpose, and they use the true purpose process to decide which purpose would work best for them. The other 2 camps are people who believe that they have a purpose rather than that they choose a purpose. So that means that just like I'm white and I'm male and my hair is brown, I didn't pick any of that. Those are features that came with the package. Many people believe that your purpose is a feature that comes with the package. And you can believe that from a spiritual standpoint, right? I chose to incarnate with this purpose, or from a more rational standpoint, that my purpose is a feature of my upbringing and everything that it grew as I grew. Right? It's kind of my DNA and my nurture, my nature and nurture predisposed me to this purpose. You can go either way with it. For those who believe that they have a purpose, they either believe that they have one purpose that never changes, or they believe that their purpose evolves as they go through life. As they evolve, the purpose evolves. Even if you believe that you only have one purpose, it's definitely the case that your degree of understanding of that purpose and how you relate to that purpose changes over time. So in actually all three cases at the practical level, the result is the same, which is every year or two, I actually have to reevaluate my purpose and refresh how I word it and how I think about it and how I manifest it. Otherwise, its motivational power will decrease and I will lose the benefit of the purpose. So it doesn't matter which camp you're in at the belief level, at the practical level, it's all the same.
And we're talking a lot about true purpose, which is the name that you gave your method or assigned your method.
My method in my book, yeah.
For what is your definition of purpose? And I know that you've developed your system, and your method includes a couple of components. I mean, it's not just, we say in Hebrew, Ye'ud, but you're talking about more than just a purpose.
That's right. Yeah, the problem we discovered was that the word purpose meant different things to different people. And when they would seek to answer the question, what is my purpose? The answers sometimes were very different kinds of answers, very different types of answers. And so we chose to subdivide purpose into different categories. It's sort of like, vehicles are subdivided into motorcycles, cars, and trucks, right? And buses. They're all vehicles. They all transport people from point A to point B, but they're different enough that we give them different names, right? So it's the same. So there are different kinds of purposes that are different enough that we chose to give them different names. One, essence, ma'ut, is a being aspect of purpose. I am my purpose and I do my purpose. The ma'ut, the essence, is the I am my purpose part, right? I can stand still and be my purpose without having to do anything. And this is, for some people, this is a tricky concept, but you go around radiating your purpose all the time, even when you're not thinking about it. And even if you're not speaking, your purpose has an effect on people who are nearby you. And people can feel that. They can feel it from others. They can't feel it from themselves, but they can feel it from others. So that's the being part. The other three have to do with doing. The second one, blessing, bracha, is how you do your purpose to one other person, right? If I were to do my purpose to you, what would happen? How would you be changed by that? So this could be something like I show people their true selves. I heal their wounds so they can change the world. I connect them with their unconscious. I show them that they're divine. I show them their path. There's many different versions of they're unique to each individual. But when I'm doing my purpose to you, I'm doing something and it causes you to change in some way. That's the second aspect. The third aspect, mission, shlichut, this is how am I meant to change the world. If my purpose got manifested on the largest possible scale, how would the world be different as a result? And this sounds like a nonprofit mission, not a corporate mission. This is like end climate change, feed the starving children, end poverty, end slavery, right? Heal the world's wounds, something like this, where you're, create heaven on earth, create peace in the Middle East, some large scale significant change, which if you did it, it would be complete and done and you wouldn't be able to redo it. That's the one that usually people feel most small and inadequate relative to. It's like, you want me to what?
Yeah.
The fourth one, message, meser, is something you would say or write or broadcast. It's wisdom that you have that other people need to hear. So if I am doing my purpose as an act of communication, this is what I would be communicating. And some people, that's on a small scale. People like you and me, it's on a large scale, right? We get on YouTube and we, or Google Hangouts, or we go on stage, or we write books or ebooks or whatever, and we're transmitting a message to the world as a way of creating change on a large scale, right? And so my message is that we can create heaven on earth in our lifetime, and that we have everything that we need to do so. And in fact, everything we have is exactly what we need to do that, and we don't need to get rid of any of it. So the thing that you think is evil and must be destroyed is a building block for heaven and earth. You just don't see how it fits. So.
I must say that I was really surprised when I found my essence in the workshop. And the funniest thing about it is that my essence is a warm, embracing hug. And then I said, ever since I remember myself as a child, I was winter or summer, everybody waited for me in school and came and asked for my hugs. And at that workshop, I didn't know everybody. People approached me like, can we have a hug? Can we have a hug? I'm like, oh my God, yes, this is my true essence. But that was,
and I guarantee this would not come as a shock to anyone who knows you.
Yeah, but the shock was that the laughter came it came as my blessing, but not as my essence.
Right.
And that's exactly how I transform people through some of my transformation is through laughter. I'll see if we're talking.
Oh, there's a question you asked I didn't answer, which is about audiences.
Exactly, right.
So your blessing has an audience. There are those people you are meant to transform. And your message has an audience. There are those people who need to hear the wisdom that you are meant to bring. And they're not necessarily the same. And as your purpose evolves, your audience evolves as well. So my first audience was people who feel lost and need to find their path. Because my first blessing was to show people the way.
The way.
And that could be someone who'd been fired from their job or just gotten divorced or just gotten out of prison. It didn't matter. If they were lost, they were my flock. They were my audience. After I was at it for 5, 6, 7 years, something like that, my guidance told me that I needed to shift and start focusing on leaders. And after a few years focusing on leaders, it said I needed to focus on world leaders, which made me very uncomfortable. But so now the people that I'm most sent to serve, and this is the people I spend most of my time with, are people who have power and authority. They have the ability to influence future events. And they are trying to create a better world. A lot of people are very cynical about leaders. Oh, they don't care about us. And oh, they're just trying to look out for themselves. There's some of that going on. But leaders are people too. And a lot of them are trying very hard to use their power to create a better world. And it's really difficult to do. And I am sent to deal with the frustrated ones, to transform them into leaders who are capable of changing the world. That's my audience, and that's my blessing.
And what made you? I mean, I know that you got. You were led by your guidance to come to Israel, and not only Israel. There is Israel, and there's Colombia, right? And why Israel out of all places?
It's not the easiest place to
I
work.
know. We're a great challenge, that's for sure.
That's right. It's so funny. People say, why would you want to work with us, Tim? We're so difficult. Very funny. And furthermore, Israelis, a related question, Israelis will say, how come everyone cares about us? Why we're this tiny little piece of land? Why is everyone watching us so closely? What's the big deal? And the answer to both of those questions is the same, which is that Israel has a role as a global change agent. Israel has a purpose to change the world. And the Jews have known this for thousands of years, right? It's carried in statements like Tikkun Olam or Or LaGoim, right? That this idea that Israel has a special role in the world. Now, it's created a lot of confusion in the Jews, like what does it mean to be the chosen people, and all kinds of wacky psychological side effects from that. We could spend a whole other conversation just on that alone. But the underlying truth of it is that Israel as a country and the Jews as a people, which aren't exactly the same thing, were given a mission to transform the world. And it appears to me that the time for that to happen is now. The world is now in a time of great transition and transformation, and it will be much more difficult for the world to be successful, perhaps impossible, if Israel does not discover and perform its purpose and do its role in that global transformation. And another question I get sometimes, because I speak to like politicians, foreign ministry people, journalists, another question they ask me is, how come when we get in a fight with the Palestinians, people get pissed at us and not at the Palestinians? Which is a fair question. And there's two answers to it. One is because you're the adult in that relationship, right? You're the one who has more power. So when two kids get in a fight, the older one is the one who gets in trouble, right? And the older one says, but she started it. She hit me first. And the parent says, too bad. You're the older one. You're the one who's supposed to know better. You need to deal with it better than you did, right? So that's one answer to the question. The other answer to that question is that people have a high expectation of Israel because they know, and I'm not talking about just the Jews, everybody else knows that Israel has a purpose and that it's not doing it. And so our standard of expectation for you is very high because we're unconsciously comparing you to the mission that you're supposed to be performing as a nation. And that's here and you're down here. So the fact that you have this higher purpose causes us to hold you to a higher standard, a standard which you are not living up to. And I haven't had anyone in Israel say, no, no, Tim, we are living up to our standard. And yes, we are. No one has made that argument yet. They all go, just like you're doing. Yep, yep, that's right. Yeah, we're not. We have a purpose. We're not doing it. We know.
Team, come and help us. Please.
Right. Well, and this is the deal, right? If we can make that purpose more clear and get the general population engaged in this idea of we as a nation have a purpose, and it's not this. It's not just to defend ourselves. That's not our purpose. That's not enough. Exactly. There's something more we're supposed to be doing than just surviving. And it's not that there's no risk. There's always risk, right? A plane could crash into my house right now and kill me, but I can't base my whole life on avoiding risk and expect to have a good life. That's not a realistic way to proceed. So if Israel as a nation is only concerned about survival, only concerned about safety and nothing else, that's not going to lead to a very good life as a nation, and it's not going to help the world evolve and transform.
And do you find our leaders and the one that you're working with that they're open to this kind of like, assuming responsibility and doing the work they need to do in order to help this nation live its purpose?
It varies from person to person.
Okay.
I would say that as a group, the business and military leaders have an easier time getting behind this idea than the politicians do. And part of the reason for that, it's easy to blame the politicians. Part of the reason for that, in fairness to the politicians, is the politicians live in a very toxic, hostile environment, where if they do one thing wrong, their entire career could be over. And that's happened a number of times to US presidential candidates where they cried at the wrong time. Or this one guy, Howard Dean, shouted in this weird way, yeehaw, or something like, and that was it. Their career was over, right? Out of a 5-second thing. So he shouted in a weird way. Who cares, right? Yes. Doesn't matter. Got replayed over and over and over and over and over again. So the politicians are terrified of doing anything unusual because there's a fairly reasonable chance that they'll just get taken out if they do that. So I have complete empathy for it, which is why we're not only working with politicians. In my view, people who are waiting for the government to fix everything are going to be waiting a long time. That doesn't mean that we should give up on them, right? They need our help to be able to do a better job. So we're working with all these different types of leaders. And by the way, that what I described is true in other countries, that it's harder for the politicians to do the right thing because of the toxic environment they work in.
I have more questions, but some people already sent their own questions. So is it okay?
Let's hear some of those. That'll be.
So Yael is writing, hi team, I'm quite sure I know what my purpose is. I think I know how to reach it. I know it will take me some years to fulfill it. How do I know I'm worthy enough to actually do this purpose?
Oh, great question. So one of the nice things about Yael's question is she's actually validated her purpose for us, because the fact that she feels unworthy of it means she's probably correct about what her purpose is.
That's a good one.
So there's two answers to that, Yael. One is that because it's your purpose, you are automatically worthy of it and automatically capable of it. If you weren't worthy of it and you weren't capable of it, it wouldn't be yours. It would be someone else's. That's the first answer. Now, I don't expect that to be very reassuring. You're not going to go say, oh, well, Tim said I'm worthy, therefore I'm fine. Right? That feeling is going to persist. The other answer is, and I'm going to contradict myself, which is to say you're automatically incapable of your purpose and automatically unworthy of your purpose in the following sense. The person you are today cannot achieve this purpose, which is why you feel unworthy of it. When I say you're capable of it, what I really mean is you are capable of evolving into the person who could fulfill that purpose. Right? So the unworthiness is an accurate self-assessment that who I am right now can't do this thing that I'm being asked to do. So you need to get started. The way you do it is you take one step, and it can be one of two things. Either what's a way I can manifest this purpose in some tiny way, one phone call, one conversation, write one page of text, send one email, right? What's a very simple way that you could take a step towards manifesting this purpose? And the other thing you can do is you can say, okay, what's one tiny step I can take towards becoming someone who could manifest this purpose? What would need to change about me so that I could do this thing? And then take take a workshop, hire a coach, have a conversation with yourself, right? Get therapy, read a book, deal with a limiting belief or a fear that you have. One thing that you could do to better enable yourself to manifest that purpose.
That's great. The other question is regarding workshops. This is Irit, and she's from, she lives in California, as a matter of fact, and she's asking if you have any workshops in California anytime soon.
Yeah, so we do, but it's an online workshop. I know Israelis love to do everything in person.
Right.
so Irit, you have a choice. Option A, you can come to Israel in March, and what is it, 22, 23, yeah. 24?
22nd through the 24th, yeah. 22,
23, 24 in Israel. Come back home, visit some relatives, find your purpose. There's option one. Option two is you can go to, it's probably higherguidancetraining.com. And there's an online thing that we're doing in the US in English that's on Tuesdays, I think. So you can sign up to do it as a teleseminar. But we're not having an in-person workshop in California. We don't do a lot of in-person workshops in the US. The problem is it's just too damn big. So we do this stuff in the US as online stuff.
As an online training.
So that's higherguidancetraining.com. I think will work. Try that. If not, you can get in touch with me and I'll give you something that works.
You during the interview you mentioned a few times those who seek their purpose, find their purpose, hopefully live their purpose,
choose to
manifest it, and those who don't. Can you characterize the differences between these two groups?
So let me say that there's a distinct difference between those who feel sufficiently motivated to find it and those who don't. Let me start with that.
Okay.
Usually the people who feel motivated to find it fall into one of two categories, and they're not mutually exclusive. It could be both. One is, I mentioned earlier, which is people who are having a crisis of meaning. That something has happened in their life and they're feeling they don't know why, and they feel motivated to try to, why me? Why is this happening to me? Why is this happening now? Right? My wife died. I just got diagnosed with a life-threatening disease. Maybe I just got cured from a life-threatening disease and I don't know what to do with myself, right? Or I just got out of prison and I need to figure out what to do with my life. I'm a different person than I was 10 years ago when I got into prison. My kids have just left home. Now the youngsters are doing it. I just graduated from college and I don't know what to do with myself, right? A friend of mine coined the term quarter life crisis, which I love. I'm 25 and living in my parents' basement, and I'm done with the army and done with school, and now I don't know what to do. So when I'm having a crisis of meaning, that motivates me to want to find my purpose, to use it as a tool to figure out what to do with my life, right? Which way do I go? And when people are in that state, usually what happens is they can feel this urge to say no to everything. Someone says, oh, you should come do this. And they're like, no, 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 no. You should take this job. No, no, no. Hey, try that. No, 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 no. And they just find themselves, I know it's not that. I know it's not that. I know it's not that. I know it, and I don't know what it is. And it's very frustrating to only have a no to everything. But that's actually a very good symptom that now is a perfect time to find your purpose. Figure out what it is you can say yes to, because it's none of the stuff you're already aware of. So that's one. The other is people who love working on themselves. They love workshops. They take workshops, they read books, they hire coaches, they do all this stuff. And very importantly, so let me just say, for those folks, the idea of finding their purpose, living their purpose sounds great. They don't need to have a crisis to want to do that. That they have an urge towards personal evolution. Mm. Right? Now, let's talk about the manifesting, because those are the people who want to find it. Having found it, many people don't manifest. A lot of people, like maybe 97%. It's pretty shocking how high the number is. So there's a couple things there. One is, having found it, almost everyone feels like they want to manifest it. But it's very difficult for people on their own to take the steps necessary to get that to happen. And so what we usually do is we offer them, either you can hire an individual coach or take a follow-on program or something like that, that will walk you through the steps of what it takes to manifest your purpose. Without that, and maybe this woman, Irit, that was writing to you a few minutes ago, maybe in that position where she knows her purpose and she can't get herself to do it, right? That's a very frustrating position to be in. And there's very specific tools and exercises and practices that break that deadlock and get you moving forward. So that's one thing, has to do with just at a practical level, there's certain steps you have to take. In terms of the people that we see who are most likely to do that, they fall into a group that I would generally call change agents. That is, people who feel a personal responsibility for changing the world. Those are the people who are most likely to take action on and manifest a purpose. They still need all the support that I was talking about a minute ago. Exactly. But they have a stake not only for improving their own lives, but for improving everybody else's too. And I see you nodding. I know you're one. And probably a lot of the people listening and watching are as well. And there's no test. All I have to do is say, are you a change agent? If they are, they know. They're like, that's me. He's talking about me. So people know it. They know it about themselves. The problem is they don't know how they're supposed to change the world. So there's this feeling, this impulse, this sense of responsibility. There's something bigger I'm supposed to be doing, and I don't know what it is. And for those people, the purpose is really essential, because it tells them this is how you're supposed to change the world. This is the lever you have that will actually work and get the world to move, right? Like Archimedes said, you've got a big enough lever, you can, this is your lever. Doing something else probably won't work. Doing this could work. And that's such important information for change agents, that they then feel motivated to find it and then to get the support they need to actually manifest it.
You're supporting so many people on their journey. Who supports you? Who assists you? Who helps you, get through whatever you need to get through in order to keep on manifesting your purpose?
Yep. So my wife, my son, my colleagues, I have the people I teach with and work with are brilliant professionals who are amazing at what they do. And so the organizations and teams and collaborations we create together are non-hierarchical, right? People would usually in this transformation industry, as the guru, I would be the one who would be in charge and my word would be law, right? It's very interesting. The transformation industry is among the most hierarchical things on the planet.
And sometimes dangerous, I must say, you know.
Dangerously hierarchical.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I use collaborative organizational systems. And so those people can veto my ideas or my instructions, and I can veto theirs, and then we have to work it out. And let me just say, Israelis could do to learn a little bit about collaboration and win-win. Just personal opinion. So this is how we work things out.
Okay.
So they have the right and the capability of giving feedback to me. Tim, we don't like that. Tim, we think that you need to do this or don't do that or whatever. The other is that I have a few people, among them Revital Chitayat, who's someone who will be teaching the workshop with me in March. She's actually my coach. And there's another guy, Jeffrey Van Dyke, who came and did the very first purpose workshops with us in 2009 here in Israel. It's interesting that for someone to coach me, they actually have to have a better connection to their higher guidance than I have to mine. which is achievable. Such people exist, right? I do not have the best connection on the planet by far. You know, I've got way better than the average population. But if it were the Olympics, I would not get the gold medal. wouldn't get the silver or bronze either. So these people really are very, very dialed into their own purpose and very, very dialed into their own guidance and able to guide me. And I'm a human being. I have challenges just like everybody else. You know, I've spent the last few months working on the wounded relationship with my father and his criticism, which I've been working on since I was 6, you know, but made some really huge progress just in the last few weeks. So like everybody else, I have my wounds that trained me for my purpose and compelled me to go out and heal and transform other people. And I've done work to heal and transform them and move beyond that to other forms of motivation, just like other people. And need support in that. And there's a lot of work I do with myself, but like anybody else, you know, you can't, hard to do surgery on your back, you know. I'm
asking you because I bump into so many people that have all the reasons in the world why not seek help, and especially when we're talking about the helping professions, there are two.
Doctors make the worst patients. Yeah, absolutely.
Doctors, psychologists, social workers, therapy.
I'm feeling much better now. I'm not like that anymore. I've healed and transformed myself. Now let me heal and transform you.
Yeah.
Which is another, I mean, this is part of the hierarchical setup that's so dangerous.
It is.
Rather than we're on a journey together and I happen to be 3 steps ahead of you and may be able to offer you some help. But there's someone else 3 steps ahead of me who's helping me along, right? That's a more realistic, psychologically healthy perspective, as opposed to I'm a transformed, enlightened being of light and energy and don't suffer from these issues anymore.
I'm fine. That's right. The rest of the world. I'm fine.
That's usually, by the way, that's a setup to a fall. As a mentor, as a teacher,
exactly.
Once I conclude that I'm cooked, I'm done, and I don't need help anymore, that it's really just about helping others, usually within a couple of years, I'll be caught screwing one of my students or embezzling money, or something horrifying will happen to dispel my illusion.
I personally want to thank you because, again, I listened to a few of your videos and you were talking about your relationship with your father and the decision that you made as a child that you will know everything so he will not criticize you. And yesterday I was leading a webinar at night and I was really, really nervous, and suddenly it hit me because my father used to tell me it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. It's going to fail.
There's the belief right there.
And immediately I was to transform myself. It was one of the best webinars ever. I'm like, oh my God. And it, you know, every time I want to do something, I guess it was right there. It's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. You're going to fail. You're going to fail.
This is one of the things my friend Jeffrey Van Dyke teaches, who does a lot of work with the core wound. He co-taught this Evolving Beyond Your Wounds course with me, is that at the core of the wound, right, there's the core wound, and then at the core of the wound consists of various different things. Unfelt emotions, negative childhood experiences, but also a belief about yourself.
Exactly.
Right? That you are incapable or unlovable or worthless or something that you've internalized and taken on and are now seeking to disprove. And this provides, it's one of the sources of motivation. Avoiding the negative feelings is one source of motivation, and trying to disprove this belief is another source of motivation that the wound provides.
Yeah. It was a big aha yesterday.
Yep.
So we have more questions. Irit wonders, when you say change agents, what do you mean?
Good. So I'll define that more carefully. So most people, when they see the crazy world around them, they think, what a mess, what a balagan. Right? And they may be angry at their leaders or corporations or wealthy people or somebody for making it this way. But some people, when they look at the balagan, say to themselves, wow, that's really a big mess. Somebody ought to fix that. And I think it's supposed to be me. I think I'm supposed to do it. Do I have to? I don't even know how. But the key is that feeling of responsibility, that changing the world is my job. It may also be somebody else's, but it's my job, right? I can't wait and rely on other people to do everything, because I know I'm supposed to do it.
Yeah.
I may not know how. I may be terrified. I may wish that weren't true. But in my heart of hearts, I know that part of the reason why I'm here, part of my responsibility in this lifetime as a human being, is to fix the world.
Yeah.
And for those people, finding their purpose really, according to one of my colleagues, Tom Rausch, ceases to be optional and becomes mandatory. Because your purpose is the instruction manual for how to change the world. And without that instruction manual, you cannot succeed at your responsibility to change and fix the world.
Yeah.
I hope that answered your question, Irit.
I hope so too. Not really. We can elaborate.
If not, I'm sure we'll hear from her again. She certainly seems capable of asking more than one question.
Ricky has, okay, let's see what Ricky is asking. At the very beginning of the interview, you said that one of the obstacles that we will find while finding our purpose is that we will have to manifest it, and we don't have to, it's a choice. And she asked, really?
Really? And I didn't say that the choice to manifest or not manifest your purpose is an obstacle. I'm saying it's a choice. And now some people don't treat it as a choice, but if you treat it as mandatory, that is, I must find my purpose and I must manifest it, it actually makes it harder to find, because it makes it less safe to know what it is. So I'm encouraging you to, instead of saying, I must know my purpose and I must find it, and I know I'm contradicting what I said 2 minutes ago, instead of saying, I must find my purpose and I must manifest it, instead say to yourself, I'd really like to know my purpose, and when I know what it is, then I'll decide whether I want to manifest it or not.
This was
in
just
truth.
Okay, sorry.
Most people want to know their purpose and choose not to out of fear. And most people who know their purpose would like to manifest it and choose not to out of fear.
Out of fear. And that's what she continues to write, that it's one thing to go through life not seeking and not finding your purpose, but once you already discovered your purpose and you don't manifest it, then you feel really unactualized and very frustrated, unfulfilled.
There's a cost to not manifesting your purpose, which is you feel less fulfilled, right? And it's not like it's a punishment or something. If I don't eat, I feel hungry, right? It's a need that's not being fulfilled. But I don't have to eat. I can wait, or I can eat less food, or I can eat later. I don't have to eat everything right now. So with the same thing with your purpose, you don't have to do it right away. You can wait. And unlike food, you can live without it. But there is a consequence of not living your purpose, is being less fulfilled. And that's true whether you know your purpose or not, that you're going to be less fulfilled if you don't, if you don't manifest it. And if you do manifest it, you will feel more fulfilled, but there's a cost to that too. and this is the thing people don't like to hear. They want everything to be lovely and perfect and fluffy bunnies if they manifest a purpose. Not so. The cost if you manifest your purpose, interestingly, is certainty. What you have to give up is the illusion that you are in control of your life. You know what I'm talking about, don't you, honey? If you pursue your purpose, then you're not only relying on yourself to manifest it, you're relying on other forces to help you manifest it as well. And if you try to manifest it, that will happen. Other people and happy coincidences will conspire to help you manifest your purpose. What happens, though, is it makes people uncomfortable and nervous because it illustrates to them conclusively that they are not in complete control. Well, they weren't in complete control anyway, but the illusion that you're in control can be comforting. It's like a warm blanket, right? It feels good. Now, warm blankets don't stop bullets. It doesn't make you more safe, but it makes you feel safer.
Well, we start covering ourselves with bulletproof blankets. This was not the end of what Ricky was saying. She said, but we also know situations that life gives us a wake-up call in a very unpleasant way when we're not on our path.
If you're determined not to manifest your purpose and you steer off of it, like I know my purpose is over here and I'm going over there, then the reverse thing happens, which is you start to get negative coincidences. Things that should be easy become difficult. Things that used to feel good and feel fulfilling no longer fulfill you. They feel empty and dry. You know, there's this great poetic expression of the flavor turning to ash in your mouth, right? It loses all its flavors. And if you're persistent enough at avoiding your purpose, if you steer off it in a dramatic way for a long enough period of time, you will start to experience diseases, divorces, car crashes, getting fired from your job, all sorts of things, earthquakes. Interesting stuff will manifest to remind you that this is not your path. But just the kind of ordinary way of going through life, of sort of kind of doing your purpose, that probably won't happen so much. That's if you get really committed to not following your path.
So I hope this answers your questions, Ricky, which was divided into three, like
great
all things in the military.
Clearly she has some experience with this, or she wouldn't be asking it that way.
Exactly. You know, a lot of people ask me about purpose and money and abundance, and I'm curious about the connection that you see between fulfilling your purpose, living it abundantly, and having an impact on this world.
I encountered two interesting limiting beliefs about this. One is that if I live my purpose, I can't make the money that I need. And this is a very dangerous belief, right? That people separate the act of doing good, the act of changing the world, the act of living their purpose and being fulfilled from the act of earning money, that they treat these as two completely separate sets of activities. And interestingly, this is codified in our legal system. This is a collective limiting belief because we have nonprofits that do good and for-profits that destroy the environment and rip off their customers, et cetera, right? So we keep those two separated. Now, not so much in Israel, but in the rest of the world, that's changing. And now there are for-profit corporations that have higher to change the world, and they're actually doing much better financially than their competitors, right? Because the customers and the employees love them. And no amount of tricky advertising can replace really feeling emotionally passionate about a company. Right? The employees come to work earlier, they stay later, they work harder. The customers refuse to go with other products, even if the other products is offering them a deal for less money. They just won't do it because they're emotionally bonded to this company because they love the company and they love its purpose. That's not how we traditionally think about for-profit companies, right? The same is true as individual. You can combine the activities of manifesting your purpose and earning your money. And if you do, you will be much more fulfilled. Because if you don't combine them, that means you have to spend 8 hours a day, possibly more, earning money doing something that's not purposeful.
Not your purpose.
And then manifest your purpose in your spare time when you're not eating, sleeping, having your relationships, or recovering from work. Right? So I don't think that's a very efficient way to go about it all. Interestingly, I've had Israelis in particular, more often than other people, tell me that it's immoral to charge people to do your purpose, which I find absolutely fascinating. And I'm like, really? Really immoral? So I have to go do something that I'm not fulfilled by?
Yeah. Because
it's immoral for me to charge money to do I charge people a lot of money to do my purpose. I'm here to tell you. Like for an individual wants me to find their purpose one-on-one, $10K US, $10,000. Right?
Yeah.
And you know, and it happens frequently, Israelis and outside of Israel, that people are willing to pay me that money to find their purpose. And if I didn't do that, I would have to go program computers or something, and then I have far less opportunity to change the world. Okay, so that's one limiting belief. The other limiting belief, which is even more insidious, is that if I live my purpose and manifest it, the universe will take care of everything and it'll all automatically work out for me. Because of course, if I'm doing my purpose, the universe will reward me for my faithful behavior by having checks delivered by elves that will take care of everything. Right? Very dangerous belief. Because now people throw themselves at their purpose with no plan and no idea how they're going to meet their basic life needs, right? 6 months later, their house is being repossessed, their spouse has left them, you know, they're in debt, and now they're angry at God or the universe or whatever for betraying them by not holding up their end of the bargain and taking care of all my needs for me because I'm doing my purpose. Well, where did it ever say that that was the bargain? Right? Who told you that if you did your purpose, everything would magically work out? Right? That's the thinking of a child. So what you have to do is figure out what your purpose is, start manifesting it a little bit, right, to get some traction, and then at some point ask yourself, how do I integrate this purpose into my work activities? And there's two ways to do that. One is you can make the work that you do already more purposeful, which is usually much easier. And the other harder way, which is what people imagine they have to do, but they don't have to do, is find different work that's more aligned with your purpose. So usually the sequence I recommend is first learn your purpose. Second, do nothing. Take a breath. Third, do some purpose stuff as a hobby, right? Do your purpose with one friend, right? Make a few phone calls, do a little project, but don't quit your day job, right? That's step 3. Step 4 is now take your purpose to work, to the work you already do, and figure out how to integrate this purpose into that work. And you can integrate any purpose into any job. It's just to varying degrees, right? But you can always integrate it some. So you integrate your purpose into the work you already do, make it more purposeful, which gives you immediate benefit. You are now more motivated in your current job. And motivated, happy employees are the ones who get raises, get promotions, get bonuses. They're the ones who earn more money, right? Now, later, you ask yourself the question, do I want to leave this work and find other different work that's more aligned with my purpose? And the answer to that may be yes, and it may be no. Right? That's how the process works. And if you do choose to leave, you need a plan. You need to update your CV. You need to figure out how you, right? You need to actually do the real thing of making it work.
This is when we're talking about people who are, you know, employed at different organizations. What about those who are self-employed, who have their own businesses?
If you're self-employed, particularly if you're in the services profession, which most self-employed people are, right? You're selling and delivering services to individuals or companies. For those people, it's usually easiest to integrate their purpose into their work because they don't have to check with anybody or get permission. They can just decide to do it. And so usually what happens is they keep doing what they were already doing and then add their purpose as a new service to the menu of things that they sell to their customers, right? So now some clients hire me to do the thing I was doing before, and some clients hire me to do my purpose to them. And over time, I transition my business so that now most of my money or all of my money is coming from doing purpose-related services. And usually for those people, the services they were doing already are partly purposeful and can be made more so, right? So it's much easier for those people in that situation. But even someone who's working in a corporation can go to their boss and say, hey, you know, looking at my job description, it would be possible if I did less of this and more of this and we added this. Because if you do that, I'll be a more motivated employee. Most bosses are open to having that conversation. They may not say yes to everything you're asking for, but a rational supervisor wants a more motivated employee and would be interested in methods for getting one.
Exactly. Let's see if we have more questions from the audience before I ask my questions for you. I'm getting compliments for yesterday's webinar. Thank you very much.
Awesome job.
Malka is asking, how do you perceive depression as part of a transformation towards finding meaning and our purpose in life?
That's a really good question. Let me say that depression has many causes and many cures, and it is not necessarily purpose related. So there can be biological causes for depression, for example, that have nothing even to do with life experiences that need to be dealt with through pharmaceuticals, you know. So let's leave all of that aside because I'm not a psychiatrist and not qualified to diagnose or speak to that kind of stuff. That said, I suffered mild depression from age 6 to age 41. Because I didn't know my purpose. Now that's not true for everybody, but the people who are really called, like the change agents and messengers who really know that they have a bigger task, not knowing your purpose can be a drag on the system. It can be a downer. It's like a little bit of drip feed of, of depression into the system that's pervasive and underlying everything, which you may not even notice because you're so accustomed to it, right? There's no variation and no contrast to even know that that's the case. Until that weight gets lifted, you don't realize that you were carrying it.
The weight, yeah.
So it also sometimes happens that the depression gets more acute when it's time to find your purpose. Now, again, there could be many causes for depression, but just dealing with this purpose-only cause, if I really need to find my purpose and I'm having a crisis of meaning, I can feel depressed, and everything that everyone offers to help me make me feel better doesn't work. And what's going through my mind over and over and over again is, why am I here? Why does this matter? What am I supposed to be doing with myself? Why don't I care about anything? And what's wrong with me? Like, that's what the internal conversation would sound like. And you may or may not be thinking, I need to find my purpose. That may not be the words in your head.
No.
It could sound different. Like, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
Right? That could, but that can be a crisis of meaning calling you to find your purpose. And the path, like we were talking before about being off the path causing problems, the path can actually cause you greater discomfort to motivate you to take action, right? To make it suck more so that you'll do something about it.
Yeah. It's kind of like this wake-up call, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Irit says, it seems like you're reading my mind, like you know me. I really do have another question. if you do you still do like do you still personal coach people, or
I do.
work privately or individually with people?
Yes, I do. I typically that's with government leaders or CEOs or heads of nonprofits or people who have foundations or something like that. They're usually leaders or celebrities, right? It's usually people who have power of some kind. But
Mhm.
you know, hey, I'm easy if someone wants to pay me. So you know, and it's expensive to work. I mean, to work with me, you know, in a workshop setting costs, you know, what, a few hundred or thousand shekels or something. It's not that, I'm sorry, the math is
It's
not
like
readily available
yeah,
in my brain.
okay.
But it's that's a much less expensive way to do it. But for some people, they really want the guru in their corner, right? They want the real thing. Or, and I've had this happen, some people have tried workshops before and they know that a group setting is not right for them, or that they have, like I have, a very tricky psyche that won't respond to the normal step-by-step process. And I have two people I'm working with locally here in Berkeley where that's exactly the case with both of them. That they've done lots of workshops and just their mind is wired in such a way that it requires a little more, you know, rewiring to get it to work. And so for those people, or the ones who really are intent about changing the world, they'll often hire me one-on-one, and I'd be delighted to work with you one-on-one, Irit. It sounds like, based on your questions, that you're a suitable candidate.
I could talk with you for hours. Time flies. You know, I attended a lecture last week about, and somebody asked, how do you know that you're living your purpose? Is because you don't look at the, you know, the watch, because
time flies by and
you're having fun. Like, oh my God.
One of the symptoms.
So I just wanna, before I want to, like, you know, do the closure, I just want to say to people, I've attended the workshop led by Tim in Israel, and Tim is coming again to Israel by the end of March, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 3 days in a beautiful hotel near Jerusalem. I highly recommend it. Even if you know your purpose, go there. Tim is a smart guy, very wise. It was really inspiring to be led by you. And people say, why are you going to a purpose workshop? You know, what's your purpose? I'm like, no, I have to be there.
Well, it's an upgrade. I mean, this is the thing. Yes. Some people who know their purpose, they just have one simple purpose statement. It's 3 or 5 or 6 years old. And if they think about it, they think, you know, there's something more there for me. You know, it's time for me to get a software upgrade on my purpose.
So again, it's for those of you who know your purpose, and for those of you who work with people to find their purpose, and for those of you who want to upgrade your purpose, it's a great way of doing it. And again, if group setting and a workshop is your way of doing it, then I highly recommend that you attend this workshop. Tim, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. It was inspiring, intriguing. I've learned so much. I'm going to listen to this interview after we are done to jot some notes, because I was like so focused on what you were saying.
So much territory. We were very thorough.
Yeah. Yes, and I'm sure that this is not the last time that we meet each other. Online and offline. And I'm sure I'll see you again in Israel, or maybe in Berkeley, California. Who knows?
Who knows? I'll take you out for sushi. Come to Berkeley. You can get a free pass at a sushi restaurant.
Okay. So again, thank you very much for your time. I really highly appreciate you being here with us and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge and your life experience and your inspiration. And hopefully you'll get to meet some of the people that listen to this interview in your workshop, in upcoming workshops in Israel.
Excellent. And thank you. Being interviewed by you is like a big warm hug.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you
And let
very,
me say,
very
your
much.
audience is lucky to have you. You're a great leader for your community and a great role model. Thank you.
Thank you very much, team. And good night, everyone from Haifa, and good morning or good afternoon. What is it now?
It's afternoon.
It's afternoon in California, and we'll.
Laila Tov, everybody.
Laila Tov, bye.